Update 220 has brought us cowboys, cowgirls, and left me feeling about as lost as Jiro. You see, we finally got another meta balance update, but this time, Overkill has decided to fire a scattershot of changes in the direction of the SMG category, much needed after it fell victim to the damage range multipliers last year. But honestly, this is such a mixed bag of confusing changes. For once, I'm going to be going through each weapon adjustment one by one to hopefully make sense of it all. Because right now, I'm feeling like we're in the wild west of Payday balance, where just about anything goes. But if you want to feel more like a Bonnie and less like my man Jiro, I recommend playing Payday 2 and all the Texas Heat campaign updates on an Apex Gaming PC. You certainly won't regret it if the Midland Ranch heist is as expansive as I hope it will be, bearing in mind these PCs are built and optimized for Payday specifically. That's enough teasing the new campaign. Why don't we start this video by taking a quick look at the cosmetics in the Southbound Tailor Pack and the upcoming weapons in the Mcshay weapon pack. Starting with the outfits, the Trailblazer and Rough Rider come in 4 different colour variants, giving us 2 classic western looks. I think in terms of theme and attention to detail, we've not had a more polished and put together cosmetic pack. The gloves though are a little simplistic and difficult to get too excited about. I guess that's the problem with doing a more grounded aesthetic this time around. As for the masks in this DLC, for the first time ever, we get 7 to take a look at. I quite enjoy masks that are just hats, to be honest, and the range of cowboy hats in particular look genuinely phenomenal. Maybe it's just how well they suit my main man Jimmy, but this has to be the largest draw of this DLC pack for me. We've been given 7 options, likely because there are only 2 new meshes, but that's a fine trade-off in my opinion. Remember, you can buy the entire bundle up front this time at a reduced cost and receive the weapon and heist DLCs when they release in May and June respectively. As for that upcoming content, we already know quite a lot about what we're getting. First off, the new squad for Texas Heat has been revealed to be Clover, Bonnie, Jiro and Duke. I actually adore putting this set of heisters together, but it's going to throw a wrench into the timeline as Clover and Bonnie have already both heisted on one of these pre-White House campaigns, whilst Duke and Jiro are both heavily linked to the events at Hell's Island and the White House. This is kind of a curveball for the assumed lore of the DLC, but I'm here for it. Just slightly shocked they missed out on bringing Houston along as the only non-crossover character without a known location at this point. We also know exactly which weapons are coming to the Mcshay weapon pack. Alongside some sort of smoke grenade, we're getting counterparts to the real-world Stir Scout sniper rifle and the HK-69 grenade launcher. The Stir in particular looks great, and I'm hoping for an excellent addition to the bolt action lineup. Finally, on the DLC front, the first heist we'll be embarking on in June is the Midland Ranch heist. Not much is known about this one other than the authentic Texan ranch setting. Moving back over to today's update, I want to just quickly touch on the change to the Zeal unit designs. This is likely due to the evolving connotations of the white Z symbol they used to sport, bearing in mind the current conflict in Ukraine. I can appreciate Overkill's desire to disassociate, despite the Zeal design being completely original and several years old at this point. On to a slightly less culturally relevant topic, let's talk about guns in a video game. The Smg Rebalance is a strange one. I find that overall it tiptoes around the issue, that being damage range multipliers, and then, much like previous buff patches, decides to just make 1 or 2 weapons inexplicably stronger than the rest, whilst completely ignoring other guns that needed adjustments just as desperately. As I've already mentioned, in the end it feels like there's no rhyme or reason to why each weapon received the changes it did. Everything's experimental and not always in a good way. So let's go through my brief thoughts on each weapon adjustment. The CMP has received a pure buff to its secondary variant and a rebalance to its akimbo primary. The tweaks are positive overall, but are still unlikely to make it any more usable than its competition, especially as its accuracy stat remains fairly low. The signature SMG is one of the most drastically changed weapons in the patch, going from fairly useless to okay. With 14 points of damage and improved handling for both its secondary and akimbo variants, we're left with a couple of fine weapons. This thing really needed the buffs and still won't be tearing up the meta by any stretch of the imagination, although I do like the look of the new secondary for mid-damage builds. The changes to the Swedish K amount to 16 extra points of stability on 2 of its better attachments. I've always wanted this thing to be good, and whilst it's one of the easiest 100 accuracy and stability SMGs to acquire in the game now, it still has ammo issues and kinda sucks. The Chicago Typewriter has had a sizable buff to its long barrel attachment, which turns it into a mid to high damage category SMG, somewhere between the Spec Ops and the new Para. I like this as it's an interclass differentiator. I don't see the Tommy gun ripping it up as a result. It's probably still a little light on concealability, but even so, a better change than some on this list. I don't see the Cobra buffs making much of a difference. They're simply designed to bring what is meant to be a small and fast SMG in line with the speed pull mag ones, likely insufficient to boost usage. The Spec Ops Smg is one of the weapons getting a slight reclassification in this update, gaining damage in exchange for ammo capacity. As it's retained its old pickup rate though, this is a pretty good trade. I could see it fitting a niche if only it had access to the speed pull mag. The changes to the blaster are kinda weird. They nerfed the concealment barrel and buffed the damage barrel. Guess I'll exclusively be using the ghetto blaster from here on in. This is a sideways rebalance if ever I've seen one. This is comfortably the largest buff in the update and stands out as kinda wild compared to the rest. The Uzi has seen its damage more than doubled in exchange for a sizable chunk of its ammo capacity. This is another reclassification, but one with serious meta implications. The secondary Uzi is now a high damage SMG with 92 accuracy and 100 stability at its fingertips. This has me questioning how it stands up next to the CR805B, likely the best SMG in the game. The answer? Pretty well. We can hit the sweet spot of 20 concealment needed for my contractor build with higher accuracy, ammo, mag size, and most importantly, massively higher ammo pickup rates. It can't compete with the reload speed of the speed pull mag, but I do think that in most situations, it's simply the best secondary SMG in the game now, owing to the fact that it was rebalanced so heavy-handedly. Looking at the Akimbo primary, it's also a big improvement on where the weapon was previously, but this time the CR805s are still absolutely the kings in basically every department, so don't get too excited about a 3 Uzi build. However, pairing the old with the new is definitely a viable way to go if you want to be at the apex of the SMG meta. I've already hinted at it, but the Para SMG has also received a free 10 damage point buff. These things are excellent now, functioning as lower DPS but easier to handle versions of the CR805s. The Paras are now probably in the top 5 Akimbos in the game. The Patchette is another weapon I've always wanted to love. It's had sweeping changes to its barrel attachments to make each more distinct. In truth, I think it does very little to improve the viability of the weapon, which still suffers due to very low fire rate. Adjustments to these two jackal attachments are unlikely to really help this weapon out. The short mag still kinda sucks, and the sieve barrel is probably a nerf to the overall weapon's versatility. Jacket's piece has received a nice reload buff and was already decent beforehand. Even so, probably won't be breaking into the top meta anytime soon. The cross vertex has received a limited but overall fine change. It improves the weapon and makes it more functional, but is unlikely to push it much higher on anyone's tier list. Up next, we have an interesting change. The Compat 5's straight magazine is now one of the most impactful mods in the game, transforming the weapon's damage but at the cost of pretty important stats. I think this is actually quite a good addition, allowing you to now run the MP5K as a standalone SMG with decent stats, or with its secondary gimmick of 33 concealment. A clever way to give the weapon more mileage across builds. The Tatonka's new ammo buff is quite sizable when we consider that it will also scale with Akimbo skills. Looking at this change, I'm reminded why the Akimbo Uzi buff changed very little in the grand scheme of things. Finally, the Heather SMG has received a solid adjustment that makes it much easier for us to hit 100 stability. This now makes it one of the better high concealment Akimbo options out there, hitting 30 whilst still easily having 100 stability. Overall, I'd say I love a couple of these changes, like a few of them, and I'm completely indifferent about the rest. I'm fine with updates like these though. It feels like we're moving in the correct direction at the very least. But when we were promised more interesting rebalances in 2022, I was really thinking something a bit more bold and focused than this, or that Overkill would at least have a look at the perk and skill balance before doing anything else. As it is, I'm a little bit lost with this one. I think I like the update, but maybe I don't really care. Maybe it didn't really do anything. Maybe I'm not meant to wear cowboy clothes. Where's my Japan campaign, Overkill? I'll see you all in the next one.